Yesterday, I don't know, for some reason I heard about, or I heard the Salt and Pepper song, Let's Talk About Sex. And I was like, oh yeah, that song. Do you know how that goes?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I made it
Like,
up
I
in
know the tune. I don't know if I know the lyrics.
Well, that's fine because I changed the lyrics. And I changed it to this. Let's talk about Switch, baby. Let's talk about Luigi. Let's talk about all the Joy Pros and the Joy Cons that may be. Let's talk about Switch. Let's talk about Switch.
Switch.
Yeah, exactly. But I have up here in my opening, I said, let's talk about Switch. Just because
Gotcha.
I must have written that down at some point.
It was on the brain.
Yeah. Also, I'm not using that for the opening.
You know, I've heard in recent studies that men think about Switch every about 6 seconds. So.
Okay, that's the opening. Hello, my beautiful Popos and Nanas. Welcome to the Nintendo Everything Podcast episode. This is 37. Is that where we're on?
We are on 37.
Cool. I am your host, Oni Dino. With me, I have a Switch Not So Lite that doesn't fit into last year's dock. It's Galen.
I am an OG Switch.
So what's going on, Galen? How are you doing?
Pretty good. It's a little warm today.
It is also hot AF over here. It's
Yeah.
95 today, which in Celsius is 35 for all of the people that use the correct system. Fahrenheit sucks, pass it on.
All right.
So I am a sleepy sheepy because it's a little too warm at the moment. I like a good 90. That's how I live. I thrive in the 90 like a snake on the sidewalk.
I'm much cooler than you when it comes to tolerance levels. Like, I'm happy with things being around 77. So
No. That's too cold. 70s are too cold.
That said, I just realized that I have a pool, so I'm very excited about the warmer weather.
Yeah, you're surprisingly a fish to water. I don't know why that's surprising, but you love swimming.
I absolutely adore swimming. Back when I went to a wedding at Mississippi, I got to go swimming for the first time in like 7 years or something like that.
Whoa.
And I loved it so much I started looking into like other ways I can get my fix a little bit.
Daddy needs his crack.
Yeah, I realized that there's a clubhouse in my residency or whatever that apparently we have an HOA, but it includes free membership to the pool that I've had for 4 or 5 years now, and I've had no idea. So.
That's beautiful. You can go over to the pool and catch water Pokemon on your Switch.
Mm-hmm. Lots of Golducks.
So...
You were really expecting me to say Magikarp. I wanted to switch it up a little bit.
No, I just did the thing in my head because you said Golduck, which is, I mean, Psyduck is way more common, but then also it's weird that, like, Golduck is blue and then Psyduck is golden colored.
So you were reading way too into it.
Just my brain, there's a lot of things going off left and right constantly. It's exhausting. That's why I need to consume all of these carbohydrates and sugars every day. I'm like a hummingbird.
And that's why you are now a sleepy sheepy.
I am a sleepy sheepy today. It's hard. So today, what we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how the Switch Lite just got announced earlier this week. We're going to talk about all the pros and cons. And we are also going to talk about Dr. Mario World, because that's just launched this week. Boy, that was a tough one. That was a real tough sentence. And we're also going to talk about Fire Emblem, because that's coming out, so we continue our weekly celebration of Fire Emblem. I'm really excited about that game. The more I'm looking into it, and the more stuff that they're revealing just before release, I went from neutral, positive, to actual excitement on that game.
Nice.
Yeah. And then, of course, we will be talking about Pokemon as well. Lots of new details came out about it, and we've been kind of, I don't know if avoiding is the right word, but we just haven't been talking about the controversy about the regional Pokedex, and all that junk. So I think we're going to start touching on it this week and inevitably keep talking about it in the futures. Why'd you laugh? Don't embarrass me in front of the Popos and the Nanas, okay? I got ice climbers to impress.
I was gonna say, are we finally gonna address the Oliphant in the room?
We're gonna talk about the Munch, the one that's not a Pikachu, but it dresses like a Pikachu.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. I have no idea what that one's called.
So let's kick things off.
Oh,
with
Phanpy. That's what it's called.
Phanpy?
Phanpy?
What? Is that the elephant?
Yeah, Phanpy.
Oh, that's not the one
Phanpy.
I was talking about.
No, but that's the Pokemon that I should have said. Welcome to the Nintendo Everything Podcast.
Yeah, just, like, what do you expect? Let's talk about our adventure log, come on. So, Galen, you've been playing your own type of ghostish Pokemon. No, you've been playing Hollow Knight. Tell me about it.
You know what? I'll give you a B for that segue, because, you know, everything was there. Yeah, I mean, no. Everything was there.
B for boo? Now that you should give me a B on. The other thing you should have failed me. I should have flunked right out of that one.
B+. We grade on a curve, and we also give points for effort.
What new age school are you? Anyway, tell me about Hollow Knight.
American education system. Hey-oh.
Oh, jeez. Oh, spiking. Is it getting hotter in here? Or is it just my my lack of aircon?
Yeah, I've been playing some Hollow Knight.
Very cool. Galen and I just sent him over a video of a compilation of just like nerds responding to everything by being like, cool, very cool. And it was awful. Anyway, tell me about Hollow Knight. Where did you go first in this game? Did you go left? Did you go right? Which area did you go to? Because that game is open AF.
Oh, God. I didn't even know that you could go multiple ways in that game.
Yes. That's what stopped me from starting it up. I was just intimidated by, God, well, which way should I go?
Yeah. No, I ended up going, I believe it was to the right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't quote me on that. It's been a little while since I actually started, and I haven't actually left the cave since I first went in. So,
okay. Yeah, so how are you getting along with it?
It's a lot of fun. God damn it.
You're inside your own head now. Galen and I also talked recently about like, oh, we should be a little more descriptive on when we like things or whatever. Just a little behind the scenes action for you there. And so I was like, oh yeah, we probably should just try to avoid overstating like something is fun or cool, because why is it fun? Why is it cool, right?
Can I
now
my...
I think I mentioned it too much, because now Galen's like, oh no, what do I say? If I can't offer critique, what do I do on the podcast?
Can I change my additional DLC to that video that you sent me where it's just all the unboxings like, oh, this is neat. This is really cool. This is fun.
We'll do a double
nice.
DLC there. So we'll
all
have
right, there
three
we go.
things. We'll have one from you, one from me, and then one that's a combined thing.
It'll be a communal one down at the bottom.
So tell me about Hollow Knight.
It's very exciting to be able to explore the game fresh. Like, I have not looked anything up on this game. I've heard a couple of reviews, so I know that it definitely has high praise. And I definitely know the, not necessarily criticisms, but the standard of it is a very difficult game, and it's very precise.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say it is a forgiving game. When I'm thinking about how I want to try to explain my experience on the game is I really want to use the phrase, it's like the cross between a Metroidvania-esque style with a Dark Souls-esque approach in how forgiving the game is. There's the mechanic of if your character dies, you lose absolutely everything that you had monetarily wise. I think they're called geos in the game.
You gotta do a corpse run, right?
Yeah, and then you have to go back to exactly where you last died, and you get everything, and there's a chance that I haven't died twice in a row. Like,
Okay.
I haven't died on my way back to get there. So
That sounds like good game design. It sounds like you were learning from what you did wrong or whatever.
true, but it also, there is not much to recovery when playing the game. Like, I've had 3 separate occasions where I got hit by an enemy, got knocked into the attack by another enemy, and then by the time I realized what was happening, I fell into a pit and absolutely all of my health just went away. Like, I was just like completely bombarded by this. And granted, it was a little, I wasn't angry at the game for trying to be unfair, because I put myself in that situation and I was understanding, and there were a lot of things that had to go wrong for that series of outcome to happen.
Okay.
But I'm trying to figure out if the balance in the game is right, or if increasing like the invincibility frames after you get hit by an attack would, to kind of like give yourself a little bit more leeway and avoid situations like that happening, if that would take away from the game itself.
So, I do have a thought on that. From the very little that I do know about the game, there are a bunch of different abilities and powers and things you can equip that you get throughout the game. So maybe there's something that you can equip that will augment your battle experience to your personal liking.
Mm-hmm.
So keep exploring.
Yeah, I think I've got like 4 or 5 different badges that you can equip. They're either badges or emblems. I can't remember what they're called. But I can't figure out how to like actually activate them. I know you have to go to the bench and sit down, and that's how you actually change out your equipment and change out your layout. But I'm not seeing like a noticeable difference when I'm playing the game yet, so I don't know if I'm doing it right or not. The game, however, in a whole, I am definitely enjoying myself when I am playing the game.
Okay.
I'm very much into this precision platformer-esque style that the game prompts.
Right.
I had a couple of DuckTales-esque flashbacks when I had to get to that other area. I didn't have the dash move just yet, so I just saw the enemy that was walking around in the poison below, and I just decided to like pogo my way on this single enemy all the way over to the other side.
That's
I
great.
don't know
That always
if
feels
I
good.
was supposed to do that or not, but I did it.
That's good.
Yeah, there were a lot of moments that when playing the game, especially when you get over a part that you were having problems with, you get that sense of satisfaction that goes along with it, like finally being able to beat something.
Fantastic. So
Yeah.
you're going to keep playing this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Apparently there are like 3 other directions I could have been going in from the beginning of the game, so
Yeah, it's really crazy. And so far I've had a couple people recommend to me to go, I can't remember the name of the first place. I think it's called Green something. That's what people have recommended to start with, and then just kind of go from there.
I have the dash cloak. That's all I'm going to say.
So as for me this week, I played a couple of different things, but I wanted to talk about Final Fantasy VII because I've been playing a little bit more of that. Something that really, I mean, of course, I've played this game a bajillion times before when I was younger. It's been a couple years since I've actually played it over again, and this time I'm playing it in Japanese too, so it has a different feel for me.
Yeah.
Something that really struck out to me is the pace of the game. It is so incredibly well paced in the Midgar section, which is kind of the first, I don't know, fifth of the game, I guess, is a good judgment of how long the game is. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because it's gonna be the entire remake in what, a year or so when that thing does come out.
Exactly. So that is right what I wanted to talk about from this. It is so well paced in the Midgar section. Every single thing that you're doing is pushing along the story, pushing along character progression, and teaching you systems, and it's really varied. It's wonderful. That makes me worried then about the remake, the part 1 of Infinity of this remake that's coming out in, I think, March of 2020. Because if that is so well paced, I'm not so sure I want to see so much more of Midgar or this expanded or this stretched out or whatever. I hope they can pull that off.
Yeah.
I'm not optimistic about it.
Well, and I was thinking about that a little bit, and I was just wondering if Square's efforts to break up the game the way that they are, where it's like, hey, the Midgar is going to be all of what the first bit of the remake that we're coming out with next year is going to be. I'm wondering if that is more of a response to the way that gamers consume games nowadays, as opposed to leading more towards like limitations in staffing, limitations in like just being able to get a product out in time and being able to be like, hey, this is what we got so far, this is what you can be expecting. Yeah, I'm wondering if this is more of a design decision in, hey, we took a bunch of surveys, the people who used to be big Final Fantasy fans, they've grown up and they don't necessarily have as much time to consume on video games nowadays. So we're going to focus more on this section first so they can take their time going through it. And by the time that they have put in those 30 hours over the next year or so, then we'll come out with the next chapter for them.
So I totally don't think so. I think it is completely a staffing and a whatever decision ahead of time and making money. I also think that Square management is really terrible at the moment, and I don't think that they know what they're doing. They already have said that they don't know how many parts this is actually going to be, this remake.
Okay.
And that Midgar section is not 30 hours. It's not 40 hours. It's like 10, 15 maybe? So they're going to be expanding a whole bunch of stuff, which not ultimately, but like on the surface, it sounds cool. It's like, cool, more lore, more whatever the hell. I get to explore all these different areas. The pace, though, is that going to suffer from it, right? And I mean, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. If you guys want to hear more about us talking about this, several episodes back, we talked about Final Fantasy Remake and a lot of our issues and a lot of our excitements about it.
And a lot of our Tifa's boobs about it.
Anyway, I've been playing the original, the remaster, I guess, on the Switch. I'm post Midgar, of course, and every village, dungeon, story beat, everything genuinely bounces from one character to another and develops their personality further. It's really well done, and I love all of the characters. They feel extremely different from each other. So I want to talk about that, especially because I'm playing it in Japanese. Barrett, especially, comes across as a bit more profound than I remember him being in the English version, but that could also just be me misremembering, from many moons ago.
Random thought that I just had.
Yeah.
When you are finished with your replaying of the game, would you maybe want to do a spoiler cast on it?
Yeah, okay, so I'm so confused because yes, but also this is a 23-year-old game. But also there is a remake of the game coming out starting next year. So like, what do we do about spoilers on this game? You know what I mean?
Welcome to 2019, people.
It's so weird. So I don't even know, like, do I mention spoilers here? Do I not mention? Because it's old, but I don't know.
I think we need to have, like, tiers of spoiler. Like, this is a tier 1 spoiler because, hey, this is brand new to the game. Nobody's ever seen this before. This is something new that they throw in to, like, surprise the fans.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Your tier
on the remake.
Tier 2 spoiler. Yeah. And then you have your tier 2 spoiler where it's just like, hey, you're coming up to this part. It's pretty story heavy, but we found this out 20 years ago. So
wait, so are you talking about doing a spoiler cast on the remake that comes out in March of 2020?
No, I'm just talking about like the idea of talking about a game that is a remake that we want to do a spoiler cast on. It's just like, okay, so here's what we can talk about. That's if you've played Final Fantasy VII before, but you haven't played the remake, you know what we're talking about on this section. And then, hey, this would only make sense if you've played the remake. You know what I mean? Like different tier levels.
My face is that meme right now of a whole bunch of mathematical equations flying past my head. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. So I'm just going to keep talking about my impressions here.
Is it fun?
No. Oh, the game? Yeah. Shut up. But something else I wanted to point out is with Red 13, it's interesting that he uses different pronouns when he refers to himself. when you first meet him versus when you guys are in Cosmo Canyon. And it's a linguistic thing that they didn't translate over from Japanese to English. But when you first meet him, he uses watashi, which is like a neutral and somewhat proper word for I/me. Then, when he gets back to his hometown in Cosmo Canyon, he starts using oida, which kind of like, I love pronouns in Japanese. It like shows off like a bit of naivete, and it makes him seem sort of like a rambunctious, kind of lovable young kid, because that's what he is in his race. He's like 40 something human years, but over his like actual maturity of his race, he's they live until they're in their 200s or something. So he's a kid. He's like a 15-year-old kid. So that's perfect for him. But it's funny because then he actually says oida in a sentence, and then he's like, watashi. And it's funny to see those little things. They never translated any of that kind of stuff over, which is a damn shame.
I wonder how you could possibly translate something like that, because
you'd have to really rewrite a lot of dialogue.
Yeah, and just getting more of the tone of the character versus the actual vernacular of the character itself, too.
Exactly. That is the total difference between translation and localization. That is a localization task where you would change certain words that he says or certain endings that he says. Like, so maybe he's dropping the G's, instead of saying dropping, he's saying dropping, and, using little apostrophes in certain areas where it makes sense. Or just using a couple of different words that can be substituted. So instead of saying like, oh, I obtained this, or I received this, or I purchased this, you say, oh, I got this, I got. You know what I mean? Things that are just a tad bit more rougher. That's why I love localization. I love doing my job. But the biggest thing I do want to say right now, so I'm at Cosmo Canyon. I'm in Nibelheim right now, so just after Cosmo Canyon in terms of the story for people who know. My biggest thing for me upon replaying this game right now is, why is Kate Sith in my party? You know who Kate Sith is, right?
Yeah.
Is the cat that rides the Moogle. Don't get me wrong, I love his design, I love cats, I love Moogles, but he stands out so much among the other characters. So in my party right now, I got Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, Red 13, Kate Sith, and Yuffie. Yuffie also stands out, but I can kind of give her a pass because number one, she's an optional / secret character, and number two, you get her in your party by being like, yeah, I'm not interested, you're whatever, see you later. And she kind of tags along like a bit of a brat, kind of like, you're like, oh, don't eat this piece of broccoli. And then she's like, well, since you said don't eat it, now I'm gonna eat it. You know what I mean? She's kind of like a little brat. So she stands out, but I can give her a pass because of those reasons. But there is one scene in particular where your entire party is at Cosmo Canyon and all your party members are sitting around the fire at night, and everyone's reflecting on all the things that have happened up to that point in the game, particularly their own personal struggles that they're dealing with. It's a very melancholic game early on. There's a lot of loss and a lot of sorrow. So Tifa is getting more fearful of Cloud, and she's worried about him and what he's been saying for reasons that get explained later. Barrett is reflecting on Sector 7's destruction in Midgar, which was because of him. Biggs wedged Jesse's death because of him. His hometown, which you just went to, of Coral or Mount Coral or whatever the hell it's called, that was razed to the ground because of him. He just met his old townsfolk person that he was close with named Dine, and he was not able to save him, and that was a super sad and tragic moment that it never hit me so much when I was younger, but when I replayed it, and maybe it was the Japanese, maybe it's just being older, but that was such a sad scene. We'll get into that later. Maybe we will do a spoiler cast now that I'm talking about it. Anyway, Barrett's talking about that. Barrett's arc is super underappreciated. I really love him.
Yeah. And
then Aerith is talking about being strong, but struggling, and dealing with her being an ancient and learning about her connection to Shinra and Sephiroth. Red 13 just learned some stuff about his father and the planet dying, and how much he loves his grandfather and respects him. And I'm like, why is there a cat who rides a physically deformed Mog in my party? everybody is talking about the most profound shit. And I'm like, I love this so much. And then like, I don't even remember what Kate says because it's unmemorable, and he speaks like a dummy too. The way he talks is really dumb. And I don't know, he's just like, I'm fat or whatever. This mog is lumpy. I don't even know what he talks about. But I know he gets more payoff later on. I know the whole story, but like, I do hope with the remake that they expand upon why he's in the party or make him just make more sense.
I am kind of surprised that you are getting so much of an emotional connection on this play around.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, you said it yourself. You played through the game, a billion times before, which, I don't know. But
Yeah, I mean, when it's good writing and good fiction, I mean, I relate to so many different characters on so many different ways, and yeah, it's just good storytelling. That is a good game. Yeah.
I'm just surprised that even after playing the game so many times, the story beats that are going to be coming up, the turmoil and the ultimate payoff, which from in a literary sense can sometimes, stifle some of the anticipation of finding out what happens and just like enhancing that sensation that's there. Like rereading a book a second time and going, okay, yeah, this event just came in, this character is really sad, but he's going to learn this thing in the end of the book, and you know what, I'm observing the path that he's taking versus experiencing it in the moment. Like, it still sounds like you're pretty invested in all the characters.
I really am, but my thought on that is that I don't get desensitized to these things as long as they tell a good story and they execute it well. Because if they execute it well, then I don't care if right now the person is sad, but they have a redemption arc later. I'm still living in the moment of them being sad. And partly knowing that something else later is coming along, I can examine what they're going through at the moment and empathize with it even stronger. So I love rereading books and replaying video games. I love it. I think I replay games like Breath of Fire 2 and Super Mario RPG and Chrono Trigger. I replay them probably biennially.
Mm-hmm. When you replay Chrono Trigger, do you like change up the ending that you get, or do you just kind of go and being like, let's see what I get this time?
I usually go for the full completion kind of thing, but
okay,
it kind of varies from time to time.
You don't change everybody into lizard people?
You can do that, but that means you have to like not complete parts of the story. You have to defeat the end boss at certain parts of the story in order to get certain endings. So that means that you skip, 90% or 20% of the game or whatever. But yeah, video games are great. I love games.
I've got frog songs stuck in my head now.
Sing it.
Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.
Nice.
Oh, thank you.
Games are great.
Games are great.
So, this week, Nintendo announced the Nintendo Switch Lite. This has been heavily rumored for a really long time, like over a year. No big surprises here, but it is a Nintendo Switch that is 100% handheld only, missing some features like the IR camera, HD rumble, Labo support, detachable Joy-Cons, but it is like $200 US dollars, and that's the selling point. Now, of course, it's new hardware. This reminded me so much of when the 2DS launched, and people were like, what is that? Who wants this? Oh. You know what I mean? That, like, I don't know, just gamers can't get out of their own heads or asses, and...
Yeah, they can't... Hey, this doesn't apply to me directly, so I see no value in it whatsoever. Like, that kind of a mentality.
I don't want it. It looks like crap. Do you know what I mean? Just, God.
I know what you're talking about.
Just like the majority of the planet is just terrible. I don't know. I just don't like people. Anyway, Galen, when this was announced, what did you think about it? What were your thoughts initially?
Well, initially I was just really surprised. Like I was surprised that they finally decided to pull the trigger now instead of announcing this back at E3. Like, did the month of not having that focus, attention, and exposure really, like, was it really worth it?
I think so, because if you announce this at E3, it ends up eclipsing the other announcements that you made. You know what I mean?
Yeah. From a time-wise, it does free up more to talk about the games itself. So I can understand it being a smarter choice, but even coming out with the announcement like later in the week or something, like I'm just surprised that we got it so early and not at the time.
Well, it's not that early though, because it's launching September 20th, which is basically just over 2 months from now. So I think this is kind of the latest that they could announce it, because they want people to pre-order, right?
Yeah. But no, I was talking about, like, they straight up said, hey, we're not bringing any consoles or making any announcements or anything like that at E3. Like,
yeah, that was
I feel
to get people's get people's expectations in line.
Yeah.
What would you have done?
I would have announced it either the week of or the week after E3.
But then don't you think that would have eaten up some of the good press that your other stuff at E3 got announced?
Not at all, because the way that I see it, all of the focus and all the intention was on gaming as a whole. You had so many people focusing on, hey, what games are going to be coming out? What are the new systems that are going to be coming out? I mean, there was a lot of talk about the idea of new hardware in it of itself, because Microsoft decided to come out with their Project Scarlett.
Oh, that was such a bad reveal. They really shouldn't have done that.
It was a terrible reveal. But even with that said, if Nintendo had come out like at the end of the week, like if they had come out on Friday and just played the exact same trailer that they launched a couple days when they actually announced it, I feel like to me that would have made a lot more sense, because a lot more people are actively looking for news that are related to gaming stuff. Even people who aren't gamers know that a bunch of new gaming stuff is going to be coming around from a pure algorithmic standpoint.
What algorithm?
Google Trends. I mean, news sources focusing on video game stuff when they usually kind of turn a blind eye to that the rest of the year.
Sure, but then, like, on that thought, do you think that them announcing it now, like, people missed this announcement?
I feel that possibly. Like, if you're
I don't think so at all. This is when I would slap you if we were in the same room. This was big news.
We can agree to disagree on this one.
I agree that you are a butt.
That being said, looking at the console itself, I really like the color choices.
I love the color choices too.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see that they are bringing some of the fun that the 3DS had back with the Switch. Like, yeah. I was really expecting that the only kind of customization we were really going to get in the console itself was going to be in the Joy-Cons. So I've been waiting for a while for them to come out with like a jungle green or like an olive green Joy-Con, because that would be freaking amazing, or come out with like an NES one. Now I can see that can be applied to the entire console itself.
Yeah.
When they announced that, hey, when Pokemon Sword and Shield comes out, we're gonna have special edition consoles for that. That's really cool.
I like that one. What do you think about it?
I like them. Not my style personally, but I love the design that they decide to go with.
I think it's really adorable. It's like this like lighter gray, and then it has these two really interesting color choices of, it's like sky blue, but it's deeper than that. It's a bit of a deeper and more bolder blue. And then they have like this rose red color, but it's at the same time deeper and more bolder. It's not full on magenta or anything, but they're really, really pretty colors.
Yeah. I think that Nintendo's always been spot on when it comes out with like the variations that they have in the consoles. Like, yeah, okay, some of them aren't really in my wheelhouse, but I appreciate them coming out with those options and those choices. And I'm glad to see that Nintendo's policy on wanting to give those options and choices hasn't gone away yet.
Yeah. So going back to that on the options side of things, I think that this Nintendo Lite or Switch Lite is a good option.
I kind of like Nintendo Lite.
I think that this is a good option that can expand the user base. This is for people who don't have a Switch yet and for those who would only use it in handheld. So they might as well get the one that is $100 cheaper, literally two-thirds of the price, a third off. And it's good for like kids or people who want to have a second system or something like that.
Yeah. Or just families, families
Right.
of, hey, you know what? We don't want a console on the TV completely blocking it off from anybody else who may want to be using it or something. Personally, I find myself using my system more in handheld than I do putting it into the TV. And part of that is it's nice to have my wife watch Netflix or something like that while I'm getting some gaming in. And some of it is just, I like the feeling of having the console in my hand and just like immersing myself, even though it's a smaller screen, being able to hold it close to my face and just incorporate more of my field of vision.
Go inside of my eyeballs. That's what I want.
Exactly.
Make the screen bigger.
I just want the Virtual Boy back. I just want a system I can plaster to my face.
Yes. Put the screen behind my head. That's how far into my head I want it to be.
Pretty much, yeah. I was trying to understand the price point difference. Like, is $100 off worth removing the features that it had?
Oh, do you think it should be cheaper?
I kind of was hoping, like, I was expecting more of like a 180 or maybe even a 150. That's super cheap.
Yeah,
but
that's insanely cheap. I think they could have actually gone to 150 in terms of what it cost them to manufacture that console. I think they could have done that with taking a very little hit.
Yeah, we might see that a little bit later down the road.
Oh, surely, inevitably.
Once I started thinking about it, like, if you were to pick up just the Switch dock on its own, that's about $100. If you were to pick up a second pair of Joy-Con controllers, that's about $80 or something, assuming that you're not getting the stuff on sale anywhere. But I can understand not including those things into the system, how they were able to get it as cheap as they did.
Yeah. I kind of think the same as you, where I think that $200 is a good price point, and I think that that's it's the marketing price of it being $199 kind of thing.
Yeah.
For the current gen console. I think that that's a great option. But I do think as well, with all of the things that they removed, I was like, they probably could have made that a little bit cheaper. But maybe, after marketing research, they realized that no, $199 is enough to surprise consumers and to make people pull the trigger on making that purchase. Because, maybe some kids want it and their parents are like, $300, you know what I mean? But then they're like, $199, okay. Especially with like the price of phones or whatever the hell thing that people compare their prices to. $199 is not that big of a deal in terms of large electronics like the Switch, like a phone, that kind of thing. Tablet.
Yeah. The way that they designed the Switch Lite itself, especially in keeping the Joy-Cons built into the actual console itself, it does limit some of the games that you could actually play in it. Like,
yeah, we do have to talk about that.
Like, at first I was like, what the heck are they talking about? I do not have a single game that I can't play in handheld mode. But then I thought about it, and you can't play Mario Party. And yes, you can get a separate pair of controllers to play it on the go, but the system doesn't have a kickstand, so it's really kind of...
Yeah, it is kind of weird that they removed the kickstand, because that thing is very cheap in terms of like how it's made and everything, which makes sense. They want it to like pop off really easily if it bumps into something without breaking, but whatever. Or if you try and dock it with the kickstand out, it'll just pop off or whatever. So it's a bit of a safety thing as well. But anyway, lots of people will be using that for like watching YouTube and Hulu and whatever the hell else.
I feel like it's a very strange choice, but I can also kind of understand where they were coming from. If they really wanted to focus on this as a handheld console.
Yeah, I mean, this is a very pointed, marketed product, right? This is only for people who want to play it like single and handheld only. And there, I think, are lots of people that want that. So having this option is good. If you want all the other features, you get the real one.
Well, and it also gives the Switch brand itself a little bit more of a modular sense, or being able to buy the Switch that you want. Okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to carry it around with you and you're basically just going to be playing the game solo? Well, here's this game or console that's going to be a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
Hey, are you mainly going to be playing it at home? Are you mainly going to be playing it with other people? Well, here's this option over here. It's the original one, and it happens to offer these additional features, but it's a little bit more pricey. Like, it gives you that flexibility of choosing the console that is perfect for you.
Yeah,
I felt like that's what they tried to do with the 3DS versus the 2DS, but I don't think it hit the mark quite well, because the only major difference that was there was screen size and did you want 3D, yes or no?
Yeah, I think that both the 2DS and the 2DS XL came out a little bit late in the 3DS's life.
That's another good factor.
But I think it's also because they really changed up the marketing of the 3DS post-launch. Like, remember the price drop and all that stuff? I think they really changed how they were marketing that system. And especially with that being their only source of income, with the Wii U not doing well, they really had to change so much stuff. So
yeah, they
really acted on their feet with that console. But when you were talking about the so the mini, the Lite, which is going to be hard not to call it the mini, that being handheld only, I'm wondering, like, okay, for the inevitable Switch Pro version in the future, is that going to be a home console only? You know what I mean? So then you have 3 totally different versions of this console. You have 3 totally different options.
I'm really hoping that they call it the Switch XL.
No, they got to call it something totally different. The Switch Boost!
At this point, I think we're really just kind of going to speculation mode of like what
we are, but it's fun. As long as we're not pretending that speculation is like fact or something, it's fine.
Absolutely. That was more of just a disclaimer more than anything else of, hey, let's speculate a little bit.
If you can't tell that we be speculating right now, then what person are you?
Going off of the rumors that we've heard before, and specifically the rumors of, hey, they're coming out with 2 new Switch consoles that have drastically changed the way that you are going to view playing the Switch. Like, this is kind of a big change, and it was the easier one to guess. My guess is that if they do come out with a more powerful version of the Switch, they would come out with something with a much larger screen to it that would be primarily focusing on the tabletop mode.
Oh, I think that sounds terrible.
Well, and if they found a way to create a bigger screen and incorporate it within the everything that the dock did as far as like cooling the system and overclocking the system to be able to plug it into the TV, if they incorporated that into the screen itself, and kind of like with some of the I almost called them newer laptops, but they've been out for like a decade now, where you could like have it in a regular laptop mode and then flip it over into like a tripod mode when you're watching things, or when you can flip the keyboard completely around and prop it up that way.
Here's my thought though on that. If they do that with the Switch and it has a battery and everything, you're just asking for a more expensive console that is not portable in the sense of battery life.
Possibly, but I mean, you're already looking at a targeted audience of, hey, look at people who want something that's more portable and more handheld.
But if they want that, then they already have that product.
Here's something that you want to have the portability, but you want to be able to take it around to like in between classes, or if you're going on a business trip and you want something to play on the plane, but still have a more immersive experience with it.
I don't think so.
A competitor for like playing it on a laptop screen versus on a handheld.
I can't honestly see them doing that though, because I see what you're saying in terms of what the features are for that, but I can't see them doing anything like that because that cannibalizes part of the markets that already exist for the regular Switch and the now announced Switch Lite. I think that they would go a totally different direction with the Pro version that they might make in the future. And that's also partly me being wishful, but I'm also trying to think a little bit realistically about it too.
Do you think they would do something where they make it like a standard focus mainly on staying at home console? Where they make the system a little bit more powerful, but you can't take it around with you?
I think I've thought about that before, right? And now with the Switch Lite out, I'm thinking that that is a little bit more likely, but again, it's Nintendo. They do crazy stuff all the time, so we don't know. But my speculation and also hopeful mind here is like, what if they did, like you just said, home console, more capable, that way it can run, lower spec next gen games for like the PS5 and stuff like that. That way you don't lose your third party markets, because that's what I'm really worried about with the Switch and with the PS5 and whatnot coming out, is that third-party games aren't going to be able to just be easily ported over to that thing. So you have that, so that way there is that option for the third-party people. And also Nintendo is like, every game that we're going to make is going to be functional on all three models, but there is this option for the third party, you know what I mean? But I don't know, as I talk it out, I'm like, well, then the people that are going to have that Switch Pro, hypothetically, is going to be a really small market, right? So then why would they still develop for it? So yeah, as I'm talking this out, that doesn't sound great as well. I don't know. And that's what's so crazy about video games and the electronics industry.
The thing that gives my hypothesis a little bit of credibility is the fact that when you look at the comparison chart that they came out with, they said that, hey, with the Nintendo Switch, it's compatible with TV mode, tabletop mode, and handheld mode. When you go over to the Switch Lite, only handheld mode. And it surprises me that tabletop mode would be specifically singled out, because I personally have not used the Switch in tabletop mode. Like, I tried it once or twice, but at that point, I might as well just pick up the console itself and just play it in handheld. And if you want people to recognize that tabletop mode, I can see what could you possibly do to make that a more appealing thing. Give it a bigger screen, allow you to have enough of a display where multiple people can view it.
So I think that if they do that, then they should just phase out the base Switch, because it's just going to replace the Switch in every way. But it's already a big screen. It's already 6.5 inches.
It's already 6.5 inches, but I'm saying, like, if you want to get a console that, you can close it up and it's the same form factor, like half the size of a PS4 or something. And
I don't think that's portable enough, though, and I don't think that there's enough of a market to justify a whole new hardware for that. You know what I mean? Because like tabletop mode is, I think, the functional mode. It's the mode that you're at work and you're on your lunch break and you take the 2 Joy-Con off and you play some Mario Kart with your friend and you stare at that tiny screen. And it's just the functional mode. Just like with the Joy-Cons, they're functional. They're not very comfortable and everything like that. And I wish they honestly would have made them better, but it's just the mode that you kind of settle for.
Yeah.
So we ended up talking about that a little bit longer than I thought we would. I do want to just mention one more thing. According to Doug Bowser, you will be able to transfer your saves between devices, and he said that there's more info on that to come.
That's really nice.
Yeah, if it's a seamless thing of like, I just, as long as it's uploaded to the cloud right after I close the software, then I go over to my my Lite, and then I turn it on, and as long as it's connected to the cloud or whatever, and I can pick up my save on that thing, then that's great.
I'm surprised you haven't called it the Switch Micro yet.
I never had one of those Game Boy Micro things. That sucked.
Nobody did. I worked at Game Crazy back when that place was still in business, and I only saw 2 Game Boy Micros the entire time I worked there.
It's dumb. See, we'll never know what Nintendo does for hardware because they came out with stuff like that. So, Galen, how about you stop talking about terrible ideas for Switch Pros and you tell me about Dr. Mario World?
the doctor is in, apparently. I wish I had a better joke at this point.
Don't force it.
Dr. Mario World, I should say. I feel I definitely need to make a distinction between the two because this does not feel like Dr. Mario.
Mm-hmm.
For one, the core mechanics of you just need to line up a certain amount of virus colors together in order to clear them out. Yes, that carried over. But the fact that you are now pushing pills up into the bottle as opposed to them falling down naturally, like, that threw me off.
You're a pill pusher?
Better a pill pusher than a pill dropper? Yeah.
Talk about video game, go ahead.
I feel like it is definitely heavy on the gacha elements that come with mobile games like this. Hey, use this block to go ahead and get rid of something on the screen. Or, hey, use this to go ahead and load up your powers separately. Like, there were a lot of things to kind of keep track of after you were going through the first tutorial levels of, okay, what the hell does all this stuff do?
Uh-huh.
As far as the gameplay itself, it was engaging. I really appreciated some of the later levels when you were getting to the more of the puzzle aspect of it. Of, hey, I've only got a certain amount of pills here. What combinations will lead me to what I want to have? It actually reminded me more of like a changed up version of Puyo Pop versus Dr. Mario.
Yeah, I saw from the trailer, because I didn't play this game. I'm terrible at
You haven't
Mario.
played it?
Dr. Mario. No, I'm not even going to play it.
Okay.
I saw the trailer. It has like Koopa shells and exploders. You got to unlock certain stuff and find coins. And I'm like, this ain't Dr. Mario. This is crazy. There's PvP, which sounds cool. How have you tried out the PvP?
I haven't tried out the PvP yet. No, I need to figure out how this game actually works before I start going online with it. But yeah, so you can choose a couple of different characters. The first three that they give you are Dr. Mario, Dr. Bowser, and I'm going to say Dr. Peach. Although they give her a little bit more of like a nurse's outfit, which I'm not sure how I feel about that. But
that's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, so they give you that, and you also have sidekicks to go along with it.
Yeah, there's doctors and assistants.
Yeah, so the doctors that you are playing as give you your special power that you can build up while you're playing the game. And like Mario, what he does is he goes ahead and clears out your lowest level of blocks. So whatever, I guess flipping it around, whatever's on the top just clears all that line out. And then Bowser goes ahead and is like, I'm going to pick 2 lines at random. We're just going to get rid of those. Just be done with it. And then Peach, she goes ahead and gets rid of an entire column. So there is a little bit of variety in what preference of gameplay do you want versus which character do you like.
That's good. Do you think it's a good balance of keeping each doctor different, but not too different?
I'm not entirely sure. I've only played as Mario so far. Like, I didn't bother switching to either of the other two because they didn't really do a good job explaining what the powers actually did and how it applied within the game. The assistants really threw me off because they just give you a passive bonus that usually... It affects more of like your score more than anything else. So I guess selecting different assistants when you're playing. I haven't gotten any additional ones other than Goomba.
Oh.
It's a lot different than what I was expecting a Dr. Mario on my phone to be.
So you're enjoying it though? You think you're going to keep going with it?
I'll probably play around it or with it for a little while. I don't think that the gameplay and the mechanics are engaging enough to push me past that gacha mentality. Like, I don't think that playing this I'll ever get to the point of, okay, I really want to keep playing. Maybe I will just drop like $5 for a couple more capsules or something. Like, I don't think I'm going to get to that point at all. It gets really hard for me. That's kind of the reason why I never started to play like the Fire Emblem one, and why I kind of stopped playing actually a lot of mobile games. Is once I get to that point of, hey, play us or give us more money if you want to start playing our game more, and I'll be like, I'll just stop playing your game because I've got lots of other options over here.
Yeah. It's like, oh well, that's just poorly designed. and I mean
Yeah.
intentionally poorly designed. It's intentionally designed to exploit you for money. So yeah, that's how I feel about mobile games too. That Fire Emblem game though, Fire Emblem Heroes, that was really fun. I really enjoyed my time with it.
Nice. One other thing I did want to point out, though, in the gameplay of Dr. Mario that really kind of threw things off for me is, so you take the pill, there's no time limit, which is also very strange. There are certain levels that do utilize it, but otherwise you can seriously look at the pill that you're getting, look at the pill that you're getting next, and then plan out where you want to drop everything and how you want things to go, versus the reacting on the fly that you would find in something like Tetris or the original Dr. Mario. But once you select the pill, you can drop it on the bottom of the screen and let it naturally raise up to where it wants to land. Or you can actually move it anywhere on the screen. Even if there is an area that is completely blocked off, like there is a solid line, you should not be able to get any pills past there. You can literally just drag it past that and it just naturally lands.
Yeah, that's quite different.
Yeah, it's very different. It does have the thing where once it starts to raise up, there's no way to lower it or to pull it back down. So you do have to keep an eye on things and make sure that it only goes as far as you want it to go before you're done making choices. It's a very, very different game.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't call it like Dr. Mario Remix or something weird, just to indicate, okay, this is a bit of a different gameplay style.
Exactly. No, and I actually would have appreciated a beta more of this one than I would have Mario Kart Tour.
So it's a damn shame that you had an extra thing to talk about with Dr. Mario World, because we talked about Fire Emblem for like a second, and that would have been a great segue into talking about Fire Emblem 3 Heroes. So this week, Nintendo introduced the Blue House, the House of the Blue Lions, with Prince Dimitri, who likes combat, dislikes fragile objects. What do you think about Prince Dimitri? I think he's kind of like, fine, whatever.
Standard main character trope-ish. As far as like the Blue Lions as a whole, I actually related and was kind of getting into the characters more so than with the red ones.
That's weird. I'm totally the opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we know where our allegiances lie.
Team Upside Down Boy.
Exactly.
Then they showed off, I forgot how to pronounce his name, Deju? Is that his name?
I think so.
He likes flowers and gardening. And he's like a rough guy with like a big old heavy brow, but he's actually a kind-hearted guy. I think that's cute.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure you do, because you're a gigantic hulking person. You're like very soft and gentle. So yeah, you're kind of like Deju.
Us big guys have feelings too.
And they showed off Sylvain, who is the typical womanizer. He has nothing else going on for his personality but that.
The skirt chaser, and that is it.
Yeah. Even he was like, hey, it's all, I don't even remember what he said. He's forgettable. But he's cute. We'll see.
I love how the main character is like, and I feel like he's got so much more to him if he just pushes himself past him, and he just kind of comes around and is like, nope, that's literally all you're seeing right now.
That's what he said. Yeah, so see, even he himself was like, no, really, I do like ladies. Then they talked about Ingrid, who likes Tales of Chivalry, which is not the next game in the Tales of franchise, and she dislikes extravagance. She seems kind of like a typical knight. Mm-hmm. That's why I was like, oh, these people are kind of boring. All of them.
And so if we're going back and talking about the houses as a whole, the Red House seemed much more focused on the nobility and the regalness of everything, where the blue team seemed to be much more focused on the nobility and the knight-esque aspect. The charismatic, Sir Gawain woman chaser type versus the Sir Lancelot noble and sorry, I'm going back into my Arthurian lore right now.
So then we also got some details on the giant beasts that you will also battle in this game. We have a huge write-up on it, and it details a whole bunch of different things, including like different chambers in the monastery and classes and a whole bunch of other stuff. So check out our website. But wanted to mention with the giant beasts, it sounds like you fight them very differently, and you're going to have to use different strategies. You have to destroy barriers and stocks and exploit different kinds of weaknesses. And then if you do it in a certain way, you'll get valuable items, which sounds very Koei Tecmo. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I think it's a great variety in the gameplay. I'm excited about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, it's really nice to be able to see them branching out to something other than just, oh hey, here's this army against this other army. Get your weapon triangles in line.
This game seems like it has a lot of content. The more I'm hearing about it, I'm like, damn, there's this in this too?
I just love the puzzle action aspect of it. Like, just seeing that stuff added on, like, seeing that and thinking of that on top of all the other content that is actually there, it increased my excitement for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They talked a little bit about some of the online features for the game. There are exchange students, which we have known a bit about before, where you can buy items from them, but now we know that you will buy them at a lower price than a regular store, and you can also play mini games with them. We don't know anything more detailed than that, so we're just going to have to we're just going to have to wait to hear more about that. And then there's also a mode called Lost Souls, and I think that this is also an online feature. It says that you have to survive on battlefields where other players have died, and then you will gain items and rewards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to hear a little more about that.
Yeah.
And then, finally, same-sex relationships have been confirmed for this game. I think everybody kind of expected it to be in this game because of the last, I think, 2 games on the 3DS had them to some degree. But it is finally officially confirmed, but we don't know exactly the list of who they are. I think only people who have like been previewing the game, they have ideas of who they are or something like that, but nothing is confirmed on the actual list of what guys and what girls can be in same-sex relationships.
Yeah. Well, and they might allude to that, but I don't think they'll actually like come out with a list or anything like that.
Oh, no, but I mean somebody will, like, by the time it's released.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, even when that list does come out, I think that will kind of detract from the joy of finding out what characters work well with each other and where, like, the whole aspect of putting these characters together and seeing the friendship or in some cases romance that comes from their companionship and camaraderie between each other and seeing where that actually takes the character is one of the most fascinating parts of the entire Fire Emblem series, and that what makes the characters that you're fighting alongside so endearing.
Yeah, but I mean, it should be, if their character is gay or bisexual or something, then it should be written into their character and come out in dialogue where appropriate, you know? Like, they shouldn't be like, nice to meet you, I'm gay. Like, that's dumb, that's awful writing. But it should be kind of obvious from maybe something that comes up appropriately, where, I don't know, say Sylvain and so-and-so, let's say Petra, because I remember her. Say she is bisexual, or no, say she's a lesbian. And then Sylvain and Petra are talking to each other, and then he's talking about how beautiful this girl is, and then Petra also mentions it, and then Sylvain's like, wait, what? You're into girl? Like, something like that. That's more natural. That's not very clever writing at all, but I mean, it could be written more cleverly. That's just the first thing that came off my top of my head.
And that's why you're a translator and not a writer.
That is really insulting, actually, because as a translator, you are a writer. As a localizer, you are a writer. Also, jackass.
Yeah, that was really harsh of me.
Yeah, I just came with that up with the top of my heading. Words. So shut up. That's mean.
In all honesty, that is actually something that or a conversation flow that I would see in a game that I would think would be organic.
Yeah, I mean, that's a human situation that does come up, but as long as it's written better than what I just said, like, then it's better. Like, okay, so this kind of goes into the topic of just, like, representation, LGBTQ representation in video games. When this topic came up on our website, the same-sex relationships are confirmed, like, I made a couple of comments like, oh, this is good. And then some other people were like, how does this change anything? This doesn't do anything for the game. And I'm like, well, actually it does, because it's good to have LGBTQ representation in video games, because these people do exist in real life. And it's good for not only people who would see themselves in that are LGBTQ and would see themselves in video games, but it's also good for homophobes as well, because it normalizes these relationships, and it's just, little baby steps in moving this topic.
I would agree that this is definitely a good baby step forward as far as like normalizing something like this. Yeah,
in general, in media, this isn't going to send waves anywhere or anything like that. But anyway, so I made comments about like, oh no, actually this is why it is actually good, and this is why it does actually do something. And then people started arguing with me like, no, it doesn't do any of that. And it's like, okay, like, I don't know, I'm just offering you why this is good for the LGBTQ people. And I don't know, it seemed like they were thinly veiling their prejudice or their bigotry by saying this doesn't do anything for the game. And it's like, what are you arguing right now? Like, why are you arguing against me? Like, okay, for example, I threw out the example of like a 12-year-old kid who is kind of figuring out their own sexuality, and then they're playing like a game or reading a book or whatever media, watching a TV show, it doesn't matter, any art form. So say this 12-year-old kid is like, oh my God, and then, they sort of recognize this character and relate to this character, and it's a really positive experience and impact on them in their life. And then say they fall in love with the creative medium of writing books, telling stories, or creating video games, or whatever. I don't know, it's all good stuff. And then I have people arguing with me in the comment section against that, and I'm like, okay, like, perhaps, I don't know, just trying to like throw things out there. Maybe I didn't articulate myself well on that, but like, why are people actively arguing against that? And it's like, man, this is a bummer. Like, can you just, I don't know, if you are genuinely arguing against that after I've offered a suggestion on that, I think you're an asshole.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
In regards to your tangent. So
yeah.
The comments that you are talking about, were they specifically, why should we, like, were they in the tone of why should we care about this, or is it I am actively against it? Like, what kind of tone were the comments in?
So it was kind of half and half on that. It was more like, well, why do we need to do this, or why is this in the game? And like, I don't know, I don't hold anything against those people. Like, I genuinely read those comments as, what does this actually do for the game? And so then I wanted to offer my perspective as a gay guy. Oh, well, this is what it actually does. And then they said no. And I'm like, okay? This is what it does do for people who are LGBTQ. Like, I can empathize with people that exist like that. I know that if I were younger, when I was younger, just sometimes you want to be like validated that other people like this exist. And so you're watching movies that have really terrible representation, or you're playing games that have terrible representation for people who are like you, and you have to settle for really, really terrible representation of your sexuality, or of your just anything. Replace sexuality with whatever else. It's just that sexuality is, sexual minority. That's the topic that we're on here.
Yeah.
But that's why I was like, this is what it does. And they were like, no, it doesn't. And I'm like, hey, well, that's you though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not a tangible fact or fiction, black or white thing. It's like if the question is, are there hats? And then somebody says no, and it's like, okay, but there are. I don't know how to argue this. I don't know. That's why I think that if you continue to argue from that point on, I'm like, well, we're not having a discussion. You just want to belittle it, or I don't even know. Like, what are you arguing against? You know what I mean? And I think that maybe you're just an asshole.
Yeah. So I can kind of see where people like that would be coming from in a very small extent.
Yeah, I can see if people are like genuinely like, what does this add to the game? Like, I don't know, this doesn't seem... And then I say, oh, well, here is what it is for a perspective. And you're like, oh, okay.
But it's just coming back and saying, no, you're wrong after that, which is like,
yeah,
you're not wanting to have a conversation. You're wanting to just like say, this is dumb, and my point is the only way of going around.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would agree with that.
Yeah, it's the way that people argue on the internet these days, where it's like, it's always basically two people who are ill-informed about something, digging their heels in the ground, yelling at each other until one of the people lands a sick burn, and then it's over. It's like, That is not discussion. You guys are just being terrible to each other. So that's why if someone's like, I don't know something, I'm so happy to be like, oh, well, here's my perspective, or here's a fact, or whatever the hell it is. And vice versa. If I don't understand something, I'm always happy to be like, I don't know about this thing. I want to know. I want to learn about it. Sometimes it's my favorite thing to hear about. Like if I hate, say I hate Dr. Mario and you love Dr. Mario, I would love to hear you talk about why Dr. Mario is great to you, because that's a perspective that I'm never going to have. So I can learn something from that.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. The internet seems to, like, people should go through a graduation of maturity in terms of discussing with people. That happens in people's lives. I have no idea how young the people are I'm talking to in these comments, right?
Yeah. Because it's the internet. You have no idea who's on the other line and who's actually behind these comments.
Yeah. So it's not like a great medium for discussing things as well, because it's a slow form of interacting. You can't hear the person's tone of voice. And, you know, maybe I write something down and it sounds completely fine to me, but then the other person, it sounds defensive. And I'm like, oh shit, I didn't mean to sound like that. I don't know. It's just bad all around. You know, everything negative is happening at the time and everything's against it. So it's just not a great form to discuss with each other, but then you yell at each other. And it's like, this, like, nothing's going anywhere except for people are maybe getting more hardened in their own opinion. And it's sad.
Well, and it's like, thinking about this and thinking about what they were saying, like, I can kind of see the spirit behind what they would be saying in regards to this particular topic, especially like, what does this add to the game, or what does this add to the story? I feel that honestly, in regards to this topic, it stems from this idea that some companies are using this platform as a sense of media promotion more than activism push.
So my thing though is that this doesn't even need to be activism. This can just be, and this is where I want us to get in the future, and that's why like things like this need to happen with the baby steps. This just needs to be just part of a character's story. You know what I mean? It's
I agree
like
with
the
you.
same thing where if people are like, oh, why is character A an orphan? What does this add to the story? Or what does this add to the game? And it's like, well, not really adding to the game. This is just part of the character's personality and their history and their backstory. Like, it's just writing, and hopefully it's written well, because I saw some people in the comments also talking about like, well, if they're just gay for the sake of it or bisexual for the sake of it, it doesn't do anything. And it's like, yes, I totally agree. I hope that it's actually written properly and written in with the characters. Otherwise, it's just more bad representation, which we already have tons of. So, and we're going to be seeing more bad representation than we are going to see good representation for this. If in a story like this, where it's very focused on relationships and very focused on character personalities, maybe you should write that into their personality. And so maybe whether it's this game or whether it's the next game, then it keeps making little progression, little by little. So that's my whole point, is that like, everything is gradual and everything is baby steps. It's just like saying, well, if this doesn't change anything, then why is it happening? It's like, well, that's the whole point. Like, for example, a protest, you have to have a protest. Maybe that one protest does nothing, but it's the little baby steps that it pushes along, it ushers people along with. And that's kind of what I was talking about. And I hope that, I hope people feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like I agree with a lot of what you're saying on this one, because I feel like when it comes to representation in media, not just games, just media as a whole, subtlety is king when it comes to this kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use two different examples here. So the first is the Netflix series of, oh God, what is it? So the Sabrina whatever remake that they did.
Okay.
There is, in the first season, there's a character who comes out as transgender. They make a very strong, very clear platform based around this character. But the writing and the way that it was made, it was almost like, I'm beating you over the head with this idea. It is, I am forcing this perspective on you.
Yeah, so if it is that, then that's just bad writing, and like
exactly
better writing. And so that's why those kinds of things, I'm sorry, I just cut you off, but let me just say one this thing is, that's why if those things exist, the bad writing, the bad representation, then we need people to critique it, actual reviewers, actual film critics or whatever it is to critique it. And then that way people learn for the next film that gets made or whatever it is. Like, it's a gradual process. That's how it goes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
No, that's fine. The other example I wanted to point up is actually from the CW series Arrow and The Flash, and a lot of the Arrowverse shows that they have. In the Arrow, they came out with a character of Mr. Terrific, and they introduce a facet of that he is a gay man and he has a husband in it. The way that they introduced this entire thing into it was not a bold proclamation or anything like that about the character. You wouldn't have even been able to guess it from watching the show, but he and his husband decide to show up in an episode, and they are going to a party event, and he's just very casual and is like, hey, look, this is my husband here. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. And they played it off with a subtlety that spoke louder to me than if they had actually drawn attention to it. Like, to me, the sexuality perspective was so blurred and so almost insignificant to a point of, is who this person boning more important than the character's personality itself and the way that they perceive the world and the way the world perceives them? And the answer was no, it shouldn't be as important, which is a statement that I honestly agree with myself. Like, this might be going too much, but I honestly believe that a person should be viewed upon the actions that they do, and that the good that they bring into the world more than their personal beliefs on things like that. And I feel like where people would sometimes question why does this matter, kind of bringing it back to our original topic, is, are they wanting to play this off with a subtlety that it deserves, or are they stating, hey, this game will have same-sex relationships as more of a, hey, look, we're cool about this too. Like, is this flat? Is this Arrow? Or is this Sabrina? Like, right. Where on the spectrum does this actually lay on?
And that's the thing, is none of us know because the game isn't out yet.
Exactly.
Like, maybe this game all across the board has great writing. Maybe it's absolute trash. You know what I mean? So we don't know yet. So we can't draw lines in the sand on so much of this stuff, but that's what the damn internet is these days, where it's like, okay, this new information came out about it, how do you feel about it? Because that's how you're always going to feel about it, and you're never going to change your mind, and no more information is going to come out. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, anyway, we just don't know how it's going to be, so we can't make a judgment on the inclusion of this just yet. The game has to come out, the movie has to come out, the whatever, the art has to come out, and then someone has to critique it, whether it's decent or bad or divisive, whatever it is, right? There's not one way to introduce X aspect of a person's personality. There's not one way to be like, oh, okay, well, they're an orphan, so they have to never trust people who are older than them or whatever. I don't know. Like, the same thing with being gay or whatever. You can't always play it off as super subtle or super overt or whatever the hell. It's just every character should be written different because every human is different, and that goes for every aspect of it. And that's why there's writing, and that's why there's critique. I don't know. So anyway, thank you for discussing all of that with me and letting me vent a bit, because that just came out not long ago. So I was just kind of surprised by a lot of the negativity in the comments section on that. And I guess I just shouldn't be surprised because it's the internet.
I would like to see those comments more as a progressive stance of saying, hey, why does specifically calling out the sexuality and bringing attention to that more than letting the writing itself speak for itself. Be a progressive stance of, hey, we don't need to talk about this. This is something that can just kind of be expected because of the quality of the game.
But on that note, though, Nintendo has not announced this themselves. Nintendo didn't put out a press statement or anything like that. This is just in the game, and people who have previews and stuff, because it's getting really close to release date, they're the ones who have confirmed this. I forgot exactly what our source was on this, but it's not a Nintendo statement.
Okay, I see, and I thought this was actually coming from Nintendo, which was the reason
I
why
should
I was
said
even...
that earlier. Let me go check what it is right now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was actually thinking that this was something that Nintendo was saying itself, and Nintendo has kind of had a history with this kind of stuff. Like, I remember when they took out, same-sex relationships with a port of The Sims back in the day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, there was a huge thing
that is
about
quite
that.
a while ago, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think there was a controversy that involved one of the Miitomo games, or Tomodachi Life, or something like that, where...
Oh, yeah. It was like a bug or something like that, where the same-sex people could get married, and you knew it was a bug because also the guys could get pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, but rather than changing stuff around so that way same-sex was still a possibility, but then guys couldn't get pregnant, of course.
They just worked out the bug altogether.
Yeah, and there was a big backlash to that, and Nintendo made a pretty decent response to it, for what it's worth, where they said, we really hear the response to this, and we will be, acting accordingly, or whatever they said, or having that influence what we do in the future to include all of our fans, or something like that.
So, and it's that kind of stuff that makes me ponder if this comment of the same-sex stuff is them kind of referencing those past ones and being like, hey, look, we have this in our game, and look how, we're fixing our things.
I mean, Nintendo has never showboated that stuff, though, that I can recall.
Yeah.
Them responding to that controversy of, Miitomo, that's a proper response. You need to respond to something like that.
Yeah. But, I mean, the fact that the knowledge of this kind of a thing in the upcoming Fire Emblem game, the fact that it did not come from Nintendo does change some things.
Yeah, this comes from US Gamer.
Yeah.
Nintendo hasn't promoted it at all.
Okay.
To my knowledge.
I still think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's all I'm really saying, too, is that, in general, this is just a simple good thing. Have characters that are written differently, because there are tens and tens and tens of people in this game, and, a lot of this game is about relationships. A few of them are gay, or bisexual, or whatever. It just makes sense, So anyway, I'm just saying it's good that it's in there. I could see that really making a good impression on somebody who is younger or whatever, because an analogy I like to use when I try to describe this to people who aren't LGBTQ or have never had to deal with something like this in their life, or not a minority, is that, for example, say you are a black kid in an all-white neighborhood or an all-white, area. When you come home and you're with your family, you're at least all black together, and not trying to say anything more than that, just that. But if you are also gay, you come home and you're all black together, but you're the only one at that dinner table who is gay. And so there is something very isolating and very scary about that. And with more people being open to this, more normalization of this in all forms of media, it can eradicate that hate. And I didn't mean for that to rhyme. And that's why I'm saying that these are very tiny baby steps, almost invisible baby steps that are good in terms of societal progress.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was surprised when people had negative shit to say about that, because you're an asshole. Don't be an asshole. Also, I'm not trying to demonize the person that was talking to me on that comment. I'm not trying to be one of those people. What I was saying, and I'm happy to talk about this here with you, Galen, is I know how you and I talk, so it's cool, and I'm glad that we can talk about this. But also, I feel like the people who listen to our podcast, especially an hour and a half into it, are really sticking around because they enjoy us, and I feel like we've curated some great listeners, especially based on the emails that we get. So I'm happy to share these kinds of talks and opinions with our dedicated listeners like this too. It's a nice little intimate conversation.
Yeah, and you know what? Anything that inspires thoughtful discussion as opposed to random internet hate is definitely something that I can support.
Absolutely.
Also, you're my friend.
You are my friend. Because, for example, I don't think any of our listeners would do this, but of course I wouldn't want to be oh my god, I fought with this person on the internet. Everybody, sick 'em. you know? Like, of course, I'm not asking that at all. That's why I respond to people who are like, what does this add to the game? And I'm like, oh, here's my thought on what this adds. I want to teach people. I want other people to teach me. I want everybody to just have discussions. I don't want people to have arguments. If you're having an argument, do not engage. That's why I left some of those comment sections, because, okay, clearly we're not discussing, right? Mm-hmm. Just everybody try and be nicer to each other, especially on the internet. Do like a kindness adjustment on your comments. Like, reread your comments. Don't make comments when you're mad. Don't make decisions when you're mad. I don't know, just try and be nicer. We can all make the world a little bit better. I know that sounds cheesy, but just by being kinder and smiling or whatever you can do. Whatever little you can do.
If that doesn't work, go ahead and join up with my Twitter and become part of the Galen Internet Attack Squad, because that sounds awesome to have an Internet Attack Squad.
The Gaius.
I just want an Internet Attack Squad now.
You're ruining the whole message, you jerk.
This guy said that my joke was dumb. Leanne, get him.
No, she's sweet. She wouldn't do that.
Thank you. Love you guys.
So we've been going for a while, so we'll talk about Pokemon next week. But just to like sort of be like a little tease here, different stuff for the different versions. We got Bea, who is a different gym leader. I forgot which version she's in. Sword, maybe? She's the fighting gym leader, and she looks super cool.
She looks... I really like the animation that they gave her, too. I got the idea, not even, like, seeing much of whatever, like, Pokemon she was using, or, like, even looking at any of the text or anything, just, like, her motions alone and giving that, like, kung fu approach to it. I was like, oh, she's the fighting gym leader. Gotcha.
Yeah, she looks like a hard ass.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
Like with, what's her name? Nessa? She looked real sassy the way she was moving. And then with the other gym leader that we got here, Alistair, he does the ghost stuff. He's got like a Shy Guy mask on, and he looks like really distraught.
Super creeped, yes.
I love him. Is it a him? I don't even know. Who cares? See? Who cares?
Mm-hmm. We're all ghost type at the end.
Oh, that's really good. Did you steal that from somewhere?
No.
Didn't you? I feel like that's really clever. Wow, that's really good. So yeah, we'll talk about all the new Pokemon and Gigantamaxing, and then we'll also talk about the Pokedex controversy later on too.
Yep.
We'll talk about that next week, so do check all that out. But we're going to go on to additional DLC for now. Sound good, Galen?
Nice.
What do you got to share for the DLCs?
This one, I had one that I discovered earlier this week. I was going around on YouTube, and I've actually got a new D&D campaign coming up a little bit later in October. It's going to be the Curse of Strahd campaign, which I've never done a pre-written campaign before, so this will be interesting. But I wanted to try to find some music that will go along with it. That would be a good soundtrack when we're playing. And part of that is I always want to have some acoustic pieces for like if they come across as a bard character or they're in a tavern. I like to have a couple of like acoustic covers that I can play just to add that little bit of flavor to the world. So I found a YouTube person or group called the Melodica Bros. They are I could not tell you by the language. It's something that's European or Northern European. Well, it's like I want to say Finnish, I want to say Swedish, I want to say German, and I'm probably like insulting a bunch of people who are like our accents sound nothing different or like that. But
oh god, please, everybody write into us. I know we have tons of listeners in Germany.
I know we do.
We also have tons of listeners in Northern Europe. In all of the, not Slavic. Oh my god, now I'm doing it too. Scandinavian countries.
Check out their video, and if somebody can tell me where these guys are from, because I actually looked it up and I could not figure it out, I would greatly appreciate it. But what they do is they are guys who basically do cover songs, but they do not only acoustic covers, but they change the entire tone and the tempo of it to change up the meaning of the song. Like the very first one, and this is the video that I'm actually recommending, it is a cover of Dragon Force's Through the Fire and Flames. But they slow the tempo down to about half, and then they're playing it on a guitar and a ukulele combo, and they actually change up the lyrics to Through the Water and Waves, and they're playing it on a beach. And
That's nice.
It completely changes the tone, and it's very soothing. I was very surprised when I heard it. I've been looking at some of their other stuff that they do, and they did covers of, like, they just came out with a video earlier where it was like Chop Suey by System of a Down, but same thing. Guitar and guitar and ukulele. Those are the instruments that they play. They do. I listened to one where it's Ozzy Osbourne's Crazy Train, except it's not crazy because of the tempo change, so it's just a regular train, and that's how they sing it. And it's like, I'm going on the rails on a regular train. They're really fun to listen to, and I really liked the smoothness of their voice. Highly recommend checking them out.
Lovely. So I am also recommending something on YouTube. I am recommending the new video by Zeltic, The Mystery of Breath of the Wild's Forgotten Temple. Zeltic is a lovely British boy who does videos primarily on the Legend of Zelda series, but not exclusively. I met him at E3 and we hung out a bit and watched some conferences and junk, and he's a very kind and personable person, so I'm very happy to recommend his stuff. Especially with the Breath of the Wild sequel being in production, he's been putting out videos lately like this one, where he muses on locations in Breath of the Wild and the lore, and this is about the Forgotten Temple, of course, and its connections to Skyward Sword and the ancient temple where Demise was sealed. Personally, I don't think like any of this stuff should be taken too seriously, but I think it's very fun to listen to because although it's very vague and full of inconsistencies, the world building in Zelda games is always intriguing to me. And plus, Zeltic has a very relaxing and gentle voice, so it's an easy listen from that too.
Nice.
I always like people who have easy voice to listen to. It's I find that way more soothing than ASMR. So do check out his content on YouTube.
Nice, very nice. Oni, if we did an ASMR, what would it be like?
It would be me banging pots and pans and then running from like a half mile away, and you can hear the footsteps being like getting louder, you know? And then I just run up to the mic and I'm just like, "You're doing a good job today. You're doing really, really good."
See, I just imagine it being me saying something, there a bunch of Google foo in the background, and then me correcting myself. Like, Zelda is very fun to play as. Link is very fun to play as.
That would be cathartic and infuriating. In not that order.
This is why Metroid can't crawl.
This is why Galen is a terrible podcast partner.
Oh.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was a joke. It was a joke.
Internet attack squad, get him. He's being mean again.
Not the Gaius. So let's move on to our favorite segment, and people who I'm feeling very appreciative today in particular, our listeners with the listener mail.
Listener mail.
So, dear listener, if you have an email for us, please do write into nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
That email to send us your wonderful questions is nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
I'm feeling kind of like emotionally, not introverted, but like intimate, I suppose, right now, especially after that talk about LGBTQ representation.
Yeah.
It's obviously something that's very close
Emotionally
to my heart.
tender right now.
Emotionally tender, yeah. So, just write on in.
Yeah.
And if you did write on in, your email, it might sound a little something like Christopher Walken. I don't know, I was just doing that.
Hey, I don't know. Max might sound like Christopher Walken. We have no idea. Max is the one who sent in their question today. Loved your email, by the way. For time's sake, I am going to paraphrase it just a bit. So, Max writes in, so, what games are in limbo for you right now? And what
Wait,
games...
you have to preface it. You have to preface it with what he talked about.
Oh, sorry.
And then read that.
So Max wrote in and was talking about all of the games that he really enjoyed and all of the games that he's really looking forward to playing and some of the games that he hasn't gotten a chance to play just yet, and just because there's a lot of good quality stuff out there right now that's just it's really kind of hard to get to everything.
Yeah, this year is packed with games, and there's only more games coming out, especially for the Switch.
Exactly.
The rest of the months of this year. So then he goes on to say, quote, read it.
So, what games are in limbo for you right now? And what games do you suspect you'll buy but might not really try in 2019? And finally, what games do you think will command the most of your attention in what remains of the year? Good luck and even better games, Max. Thanks, Max.
Thank you, Max. I wonder if this is the same Max. I think that this is the same Max that talked about. Yeah, because he mentioned in the email about Daemon Ex Machina. Yo, what up, dude? That game's fast now.
Yeah, absolutely. Max, your questions are awesome.
Yeah, you have great questions. Thank
Yeah.
you. Keep them coming. Galen, what's you say to his questioners?
So I've actually got a couple of games that are in limbo right now, but not nearly as many as I thought that I would. I'm still trying to polish off some of my completion-centric games. Like, I really want to go back to Mario Odyssey just because I want to get some more of those moons. And
yeah,
I think I've given the game enough time that I'm not as burnt out on it anymore. So going back to it, I'll get into that, oh, well, let me rediscover the fun of being accurate at this game. And then we also have Mario and Rabbids, which I should probably finish at some point. That is definitely
you definitely should. That
limbo
game's
game.
fun.
Mm-hmm. As far as what games I'll buy but not really try, that's kind of hard to say.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if I end up taking my time on getting around to either Fire Emblem or Pokemon, if I'm being completely honest with myself. Because I've been reminded on how easy it is to rent games, I might actually rent Fire Emblem, give that a try, and then just take some time actually getting my hands on a copy where I can give it more dedication. And also, I mean, if I just have a really bad run and my characters die and I'm just like reset and then, oh crap, I just lost like 4 hours of gameplay, I gotta put this down and not pick it up for another year. So I see that happening, honestly.
By the way, I wanted to mention the whole game rental thing. I had like 4 people on Twitter be like, yo, we got those here too. And like somebody also sent me a picture and it was like a pizza place plus a family video plus a CBD thing. It's an epidemic.
That's awesome.
And I also kind of wish we had one of those here just so I could go and rent a video game. I miss renting video games, man.
Right?
That was awesome.
It takes off so much of the pressure of, oh my god, do I have to drop $60 on a game that might be crap?
Yeah.
And Switch games are so easy to do that for because you don't have like constant online update subscriptions and all this other jank that you have to do with newer games. Like, I would love, switching over to PS4, I would love to rent a copy of The Division 2 because I played the first one, had a lot of fun with it, but I don't want to drop $60 on the game, so...
Well, here's the great thing about that. It's on the PlayStation, so therefore wait a couple months. It'll be down to 40 or maybe even 30.
Oh my god, I should rent Anthem. Why have I not thought about this before? Holy crap.
Well, by now it might not even be in the stores. Also, I saw Anthem, it was less than $20 recently.
Good. I just give me just like 20 minutes of flying around in an Iron Man suit, and then I can put the game down. That's like literally all I want.
And you had your fun.
Right. It's like, okay, this was nice. I'll set this down now.
So what else, Galen? Anything else?
Going to the last question, games that will probably command the most of my attention. I'm probably going to say Luigi's Mansion. And then either Fire Emblem or Pokemon. And I
Wait,
know
you just
I
put Fire
literally
Emblem...
Yeah, I know. I literally just put that before. It's going to be a glass cannon with me. So I'm either going to, let's take Fire Emblem, for example. I'm either going to pick up Fire Emblem, get so invested into the game that it's going to be the only thing I play for about the next 4 to 5 months, or I'm going to try it once, have a mediocre experience with it, and never play it. It's going to be one of those two. And I can tell you, it'll be the exact same thing for Pokemon.
Huh. That is very much your personality. You're just full of these weird things.
Yeah. But I do want to change my answer slightly. Breaking away from Nintendo games, Borderlands 3.
Oh, that come out this year?
Yeah, it comes out in September. So
Cool.
As soon as I get back from my trip to Japan, I am going to start level grinding. So.
Oh my god. September is so rough because that's the Japan trip, and that's also like all the games.
Mm-hmm. Can we actually take a vacation just so we can play these games?
From the podcast? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. What? I sound like the owl from Sword in the Stone. What dedication do you have to this thing if you're like, oh, I need to play video games, not be on my video game podcast? Oh. The people listening right now are so deceived by you.
Well, we've already established last time that I'm not a real gamer, so...
Of course not, yes.
Yes, tell us about your games, Oni.
All right, so games that... how did he phrase it exactly? Hold on, I have to go back to this.
So the first one is, what games are in limbo for you right now?
Okay, so limbo right now is Mario Maker, because that's already out and I haven't bought it yet.
Yeah.
I really want to get it. I do, but I just know how little time I currently have and how many games I already have on my backlog, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. Pokemon is also in my limbo. I haven't been super impressed with it since day one, and for all the other reasons that we didn't even talk about in this episode because we talked about so much other junk. You know, it looks good, but I don't know about a day one.
Yeah.
Another thing that's in limbo is also Link's Awakening for me, which is weird because it's a Zelda game and I very much love Zelda. But top-down Zeldas are hit or miss with me. I know this sounds crazy, but A Link to the Past, never been a fan.
Really?
The one on the Super Nintendo, yeah.
Right.
When I was a kid, nope. When I played it as an adult, nope. It's fine, but I don't know. But then A Link Between Worlds on the 3DS, I loved that game. Couldn't put it down. I think actually literally I didn't turn the game off. I played it the whole way through, which we learned several episodes back when one of our lovely listeners asked us, like, what's the game that you played for the longest time consistently on the 3DS? And I was like, 40 hours? Something like that, you know? So it's hit or miss with me, so I don't know. And also, I wrote up impressions on our website on nintendoeverything.com, so you can check back on my impressions and see where I was like, whoa, why is this, not great right now? So I'm a little hesitant on that.
Yeah.
But then, what does he say? What games are going to command all your time?
What games do you suspect that you'll buy but might not really try in 2019?
Okay, so for that one, I'm wondering if it's going to be Dragon Quest. It's either going to be glass cannon situation, feast or famine. Because if it just hits me in the right moment when I get that game, I will either hit the ground running and never stop, or I'll be like, okay, I'll play this later after I finish this other thing that's kind of similar and taking up my time. Because Fire Emblem's coming out, right? I'm all geared up for Fire Emblem. If I'm still playing Fire Emblem by the time in September when Dragon Quest comes out, that's sort of taking up my JRPG medieval part of my brain. I don't like playing games that are somewhat similar at the exact same time because then I kind of I kind of screw up the feelings that I have for each of them and the characters. So
no, I totally know what you mean on that.
yeah.
So, as I've mentioned before in the past, I'm a big follower of the web series Critical Role and their D&D campaign. Before I started to watch them, the guys who do Dragon Ball Z Abridged, Team 4-Star, they also have a campaign going with their team that they call TFS at the Table. And there was this weird period where I was watching both of them at the same time, and then I started to get into this community and like, oh, if you like Critical Role, you should really check these guys over here, or the Penny Arcade guys, and I'm just like, no, I can't get my people straight. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
So I totally know what you're feeling when you say that.
Yeah, because, I mean, as we were talking about way earlier with Final Fantasy VII, I clearly get into my characters. I like to empathize with them as much as I can, learn about them, and just, like, live in those moments as much as I can. So, Dragon Quest, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to take up my time or not initially. Eventually, for sure.
Glass cannon game. I can totally get that.
Yeah.
So, your final question is, what games do you think will command the most of your attention, and what remains of the year?
This was the easiest one. Astral Chain. Can't wait for that game so much. Oh, I am so about that.
Nice. Very nice.
So Astral Chain, Daemon X Machina, for sure, those games. Then I'm wondering, maybe Luigi's Mansion. I don't know if it's going to be like commanding a ton of my time, or if it's going to be like play it for 20, 30 minutes, put it down. That kind of thing. Well, and then just, kind of consistently do that, or what?
Yeah. And that's kind of why I gave it as my answer a little bit earlier, because I was like, I don't have as much free time to play games as I once did. So with the time that I do have, I see myself picking up and playing Luigi's Mansion in like 45-minute to an hour spurts, putting it down, and then that's slowly kind of like being spread out through the rest of the year.
Yeah. Another one, too, is maybe Fire Emblem. That's coming out in just, a week and a half, maybe? I don't remember.
Well, and especially with like going through 3 different times to like get the 3 perspectives of the story.
Yeah, as much as I'm learning about it in the last 2 weeks where we've been, it's been in our brains because we've been talking about it on the podcast to promote it with the release.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I hear about the systems or like the gameplay or whatever, I'm like, damn, that sounds pretty good. Or, oh, that sounds really addictive. And, oh, that sounds streamlined. And I'm into it. I've been on such a wave with this one because initially I was like, oh, awesome. The colors aren't great, but, it's sounding awesome. And then I went real low. I dipped with it and I was like, what is this game? Like, there's no story. And then now I'm all the way back up on it.
And you're like, oh my God, all of the story.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride. I feel like I already played the game in terms of like emotional response to it.
I still remember that Fire Emblem Direct we had when they gave us like the frickin' huge lore dump for all the people, and we're like, we have no idea who any of these people are.
I don't remember that.
The kingdom of Avalaria will face against the other 2 kingdoms, and it's like, what? Huh?
The kingdom of Psychobabble will face against the whole way too much word Tongo. What? Screwing up my languages.
Fire Emblem 3 MacGuffins.
So far, there hasn't been a MacGuffin that they talked about in this one.
Not yet.
So thank you very much, Max. We also wish you good luck and even better games as well.
The best of games, Max.
Yeah, right back in later on, especially after, because you and I, Max, we got similar tastes for video games and such.
Mm-hmm.
Let's chat about some stuff.
And if you other listeners would like to chat with us
about
some games
stuff
too.
Yeah.
Remember to send us those emails to nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
Send in your life advice questions to nintendoeverythingpod@gmail.com.
I feel like we can get real enough to answer some life questions here.
Yeah, clearly we can. I mean, today, I would say that today we hit a bit more of a serious stride than we typically do, so send in your stuff.
Episode 37, a very special episode.
I don't know,
Can that be the title of this one?
No, that
a very
sucks.
special episode.
No, it's a terrible title. I mean, we're both in our 30s, and we've been through some stuff, real highs, real lows.
Absolutely.
So what is coming up? What is coming out on NintendoEverything.com? We have a ton of things coming out. I got, of course, a bunch more E3 impressions still coming out. We got lots of interviews from E3 also coming out at some point. We're just hammering them out left and right, left and right. We have also a new Sakurai column about the making of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate CG trailers. We have a dev interview for Hatsune Miku. We have a dev interview for Final Fantasy VIII. And then we also have reviews coming up for games like Red Faction and Senran Kagura Peach Ball. Galen in particular wants to know how Senran Kagura Peach Ball is.
You could have just ended that question at how?
Galen would like to know how. Galen, quick, right now, tell me, what is the story of Peach Ball?
It has a story?
No, do it. Improv right now. What is the story of all of those ninja girls who are sitting on pinball machines, I guess? And you shoot little peach balls into them.
Yeah.
What's the narrative?
So the narrative is that 5,000 years ago, there was a legendary peach ball. And it granted several wishes to anybody who could receive the peach ball within them. And since then, there has become a gigantic tournament every 10 years.
That was a legit spit take.
Of who could gain and earn the honor of trying to be the next peach ball.
Wait, you turn into a peach ball after receiving it?
Yes. But little do they know, the peach ball has a curse that comes along with it.
Twist?
But every 1,000 years, there is a destined child with great anime boobs who can circumvent the curse and become the ball peach. Theme song by Yumi Hamasaki.
Oh man, that is a joke for you and me and maybe one other person. When I was a tiny gaby in the middle school, junior high years, I loved a Yumi Hamasaki. As did most of us.
I really liked Wild Arms for the PlayStation, so yeah, it kind of carried itself over.
Yeah. Just ushering us into the trashdom.
Was it Wild Arms or Thousand Arms?
Thousand Arms. Wild Arms is a different series.
Gotcha. See, Google. I'm telling you, Google Foo.
That's your ASMR.
Yep.
So, all that junk that I was talking about, including Galen's breakdown of the story of Senran Kagura Peach Ball, is all found on NintendoEverything.com. You can also stay connected to us with Twitter at NinEverything and our YouTube, NinEverything. And then my Twitter is at Oni_Dino, and my Instagram, which I've been doing real good about posting videos and junk on, is at Oni__Dino. You may have recently seen some lovely little pixel arts that I commissioned a wonderful artist to do for me. There is more information on that coming up soon. It looks real good. Go check out my Twitter or Instagram with that on there.
Very cool.
Galen, how about you?
Well, if you guys would like to join my Internet Attack Squad, please submit your applications on Twitter at Mobius087.
In the subject of your Twitter message, which doesn't exist, write in Gaius, because that is the acronym for the Galen Internet Attack Squad.
Hashtag Gaius.
No one is using that.
No one is using that.
Also, you should check that that hashtag and make sure it's not like an acronym for something like really awful. Like pedophilia or something like that.
Knowing my luck, it probably is. God damn it.
So, stay connected with us. Keep checking Nintendo Everything for all this great content we got coming out, exclusive content and junk. Write into us on the Nintendo Pod emails, and stay tuned for next week. And the ratings. Give us 5 stars on iTunes and 5 tunes on iStars, which is not a platform. All that junk. And for next week, oh shoot, I'm screwing it all up. Stay tuned. Everything.
So it looks like hashtag Gaius has something to do with airplanes. I might need to work on this one.
Oh, this is going to shit real quick. Okay, let's go bye-bye. Stay tuned next week. And for everything Nintendo,
stay tuned to Nintendo Everything.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna go jump in the pool.